Hi, everybody. Welcome to We're Yellow Proudly Through Our Lens. My name is Julia Sanchez, and I'm currently here with Lauren Ross. Lauren, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I'm Lauren, as he said. I live in Houston. I work in arts administration, so I am marketing and events coordinator at Ars Lyrica Houston, which we'll get into. I also play viola. I studied viola performance at Rice University, so I feel very fortunate to be able to perform and teach still in the Houston area.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so exciting. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with Ars Lyrica and how that journey's been?
I graduated from Rice last year, and I studied music, as I mentioned, and I didn't know whether I wanted to go into grad school and do that music route that all my friends seem to do. So I was like, let me see what else I might be interested in. And I always loved organizational work. I loved the idea of having a steady job out of college. So I was like, it seems like pivoting towards arts administration is just a very natural thing to do. I talked to a bunch of people who made a similar transition, and I felt like everyone was very happy with what they did and having that stability. So I found out that the best thing I should do is get experience. Ended up meeting Emma, who's my coworker here now, and she mentioned that Ars Lyrica Houston might be looking for interns. And so I never expected to work at a Baroque music organization. Just for a little context, Ars Lyrica Houston puts on concerts of music from the 17th and 18th centuries. It's very niche classical music. Never quite expected to work at a place like this, but ended up loving the work that I did, which was marketing and events planning. And they took me on as a full-time employee. So now it's been almost a full year working with them.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I met you, were you just starting out a little bit? Because I met you last year when when Ars Lyrica was doing Dido and Aeneas, and I was calling the show, and I remember getting a text from you or just getting a message saying, hey, Lauren's gonna swing by, take photos and do a little bit of marketing, and I'm just like, oh cool, who's that? And so I think that's our first time ever ever interacting.
Yeah, no, I was definitely very early on then. I think I started somewhat working kind of in the beginning of 2022, but I really only, my first concert was in March, and then Dido and Aeneas was the second concert.
Oh, crazy.
And I was still very much a 10 hours a week, and I, just kind of being thrown into they helped me out, but I didn't really know what I was doing. But I remember going to that rehearsal and taking photos of the rehearsal and feeling like a fish out of water because I didn't want to overstep or anything. Definitely would feel a lot more confident now, but it was super fun to meet everyone then. And
that's crazy. I didn't know that it was just one of your first times ever.
Yeah, it was.
It never felt like it for me.
Cool.
As, as being a contractor for Ars Lyrica, I'm just oh my gosh, she's doing great. And, that was really rad. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I made a positive impression back then, too.
Yeah, very cool. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into music in general and playing the viola?
Yeah, definitely. So unfortunately, I don't have a cute story with this. My mom, she's a Korean mom. I feel like a lot of Asian parents want, their children to do a hobby. And so she had us try everything when we were kids. Did not stick. Nothing stuck except music. But my sister and I both really took to violin. Actually, I started in violin. Cool. And again, my sister played violin, so I just started playing violin when I was 4. So I never knew a life without music.
Sure, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so rad. I didn't know that. You grew up in New York City.
I grew up in New York City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And there's a ton of music there, but yeah, grew up playing violin my whole life. And I feel when you're younger, you kind of grumble about it, but it was such a huge part of my identity. So when I was in high school and I was a junior and, starting to apply to colleges or think about that, I didn't know whether I'd be wanting to study music full time, or full time sounds funny, but I didn't know if I'd be wanting to study music in college. But I ended up going to Meadowmount. Have you ever heard of Meadowmount?
No, maybe tell me about it.
It's a music boot camp, I like to say. For it's 7 weeks. They force you to practice 4 to 5 hours a day, and they're really strict about it.
Oh my gosh.
But I feel everyone bonds through the just the torture.
Sure. Is it through the school year or in the summertime?
It's in the summertime.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so is it forgive me, is it similar to Interlochen then?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay.
So it's a program like Interlochen. I feel a lot of it's for string players and piano players.
Oh,
so
cool.
A lot of people from especially the Northeast do it. Some famous teachers are there, but I figured, I was going for the summer. I might as well learn viola. I was it seems like it'd be a great instrument to learn if I go to college, and maybe I can sit slightly higher in orchestras or slightly, better positions in chamber groups. For those who don't know, violas are kind of memed on in the music world. Do you know this?
A little bit. I feel it's in some way similar to how euphoniums are memed on as a baby tuba kind of situation.
Yeah, definitely. There's a ton of
yeah.
viola jokes, and I don't think there's truth in them, but there is like a little bit, where there's
It's
not as many
yeah.
now it's a little close to home, but there aren't as many violists, so like I figured it would just be a useful skill to learn.
Sure, yeah.
I ended up just like falling in love with the instrument.
Yeah.
I think
was it through high school?
It was, so this was right before my senior year of high school.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it was my first time like fully doing music for 2 months, like no school.
Oh my God.
It was also like my instrument. Like my sister's always super talented at violin. So I feel like having my own thing felt really nice. And I was like, you know what? I love viola. I want to apply to school for it. So I was just like, I don't know if we can curse here, but I was like, F it, we're applying to schools. I wasn't like entirely committed, so I knew I wanted to apply to dual degree programs.
Okay.
But that's why I ended up like at Rice, where I was able to like do a dual degree. I ended up studying religion, which was super fun.
Yeah.
And viola performance. And I guess I didn't like fully pursue a performance career, but I feel like I wouldn't change anything about like going to music school. I feel like I learned so many amazing skills, and just being able to be like a good viola player after all these years has been amazing.
Oh my God, that's so cool. If you don't mind me asking, what made you, what led you to the decision that you wanted to do a dual degree in viola and also in religion? Like how does that affect you in doing both, and how did you get into that?
Yeah, I think that I am, if it isn't clear so far, I feel like I'm quite a passionate person. And so I've always had like a lot of varied interests, which I know you relate to. And I didn't want to, I feel like, just segment myself off with just like one of those things. So I knew I wanted to study something, and I feel like I always left the door open. If I wanted to do music only, like I would let myself do that, or if I wanted to switch out of music, I would let myself do that too. But I ended up making it work. I tell all the young high school students, I'm like, you don't have to do a dual degree. I feel like there's a lot of parents that are like, if you're doing music, you have to study something else.
Something else that'll help you sustain yourself.
Exactly. But I feel like I didn't, and I just studied what I wanted to do. And I think having passions for both like subject areas made me actually succeed better in some, like if I was passionate about the stuff going on in my religion classes, then I feel like I would be more passionate for viola too.
Sure, yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it totally does. If you don't mind me asking, how did you get into wanting to do religion? I think, forgive me for being so bold. I think it's very different from, I think from like,
100%.
from I think from the arts to religion.
Right. And I think this is something you'll relate to where, with your psychology degree, but at Rice especially, religion isn't like, I think your conventional ways of like studying Christianity or something like that. Like it's really, I took the most random classes. Like I studied paranormal activity in some of my classes. I studied apocalyptic texts in the Old Testament. I studied like the use of like drugs for spiritual experiences. So a lot of different, very varied subject material. And I feel like it was just really interesting to me, like to think about how people perceive the world, and especially religion classes, a lot of them are really small and you do a lot of like textual analysis. So I feel like that I really enjoyed. Like I love discussion-based classes. And as I'm saying this all, I feel like a lot of it actually does correlate with music, or the things that attract me to music too, which is like working with other people and learning in a very like specific niche way, but about like the way we feel, the way we perceive the world and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like there's just like a lot of correlation, surprisingly. People are like, viola performance on its own and religion on its own are pretty unconventional to begin with. So saying you study them both is like, people are so confused. Yeah. So, but I'm glad to talk about it at any point. My full-time job is with Ars Lyrica Houston, but I am also a young artist with Da Camera, which is also another small organization here in Houston. And they put on classical music and jazz concerts, and they have this fellowship program for people, I think it's like 18 through 30, and they're just like young musicians to help them become citizen artists, so becoming like professional musicians and really engaging with the community. And it's been like a dream because I get to go into elementary school classrooms and do like lessons with kids, and it's just like a couple times a week, which like works into my full-time job, which is awesome. And then probably perform at least like one concert a month. And then I also still play with my quartet that I formed at Rice University called the Dorrington Quartet. You can follow us on Instagram.
Shameless plug. Let's do it.
We were like pretty serious for 3 years, and like in school we never applied to like competitions or anything, but always performing like at Rice. It's just like I don't think we were the best group ever, but it's like with 3 of my best friends. So
Yeah,
we
like
had,
what more could you want though?
Yeah,
I think.
exactly.
Like forming a group with your friends to be able to do what you love. What more could you want out of like an
100%.
ensemble?
Yeah. So a lot of like serious work at Rice, and now we just do like gigs. So we'll play weddings and like farmers markets still.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just because I like love performing for like the community especially. So and again, when you're with friends, like anything feels fun. So do a lot of stuff with them.
You said your mom was Korean.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I love my mom. I should show like I'll send you a photo that
Oh
you
my
can,
God,
like,
yeah,
edit in
please.
if you want.
Yeah, let's do it. This is her mom.
Yeah. Perfect. So I'm half Korean, half white, but my mom immigrated to America when she was 15.
Oh, wow.
And she came over with her family. So I actually lived in Korea when I was a baby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I was, for the first 2 years I lived there, and it was theoretically it was my first language, but I forgot a ton of it. So I'm like pretty shy now in speaking Korean, but I do still understand and talk to like my family in it.
That's so wonderful. You have a lot of family there still?
So we have a ton of extended family in Korea, but actually all of our like immediate family, like my aunts, uncles, and grandma are in New York, which is really nice. So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's so convenient.
So I go back a lot to see them, which is nice. But yeah, I think my mom, I'm sure this is an experience that will resonate with a lot of like people who have immigrant parents. Like, she wanted the best for me and my sister. Definitely. And I feel very fortunate. I think in some ways my mom was a very traditional Tiger mom, and in other ways I feel like she was so not. Like I tell everyone, no one's met anyone like my mom. Like she's the most extroverted person I know, and you take my personality and times it by 10, and that's my mom. Like you would love her.
Sure, yeah.
But I feel very fortunate that she was like supportive of like my choices. I think.
Oh, that's good. That's wonderful.
Very scared when I wanted to go to school for music, but at the same time, I think she saw like how passionate I was, and the fact that I want to, like, I'm not trying to be like super rich or anything, but I want to be able to eventually give the same back to my kids when I have them and provide for them and everything. So very fortunate to have her support. She came out to an Ars Lyrica concert in March.
That's wonderful.
So she's able to see what I do and meet my boss and coworker and everything.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
It was fun.
Did she move straight to, when she immigrated, did they go straight to New York City? Or
went straight to New York,
Wow, okay.
And it's interesting because I would say my whole extended family is very much based in New York.
Oh my God.
And like a lot of my mom is the youngest of her siblings by a lot. So like my cousins all have kids that are like closer in my age to my age than not. But they are all like in New York. And so I feel like strong ties to go back. And obviously like going to New York City is like amazing too, but I really wanted to like get away for college. Hence why I ended up in Houston.
Do you miss it?
I used to miss it a lot.
Okay.
And I'm such a proud New Yorker. Like I've always been such a proud New Yorker. Like anytime someone's like, you're from New York City, I was like, yeah, I am.
You sure am.
I sure am. I think that during COVID, like because I didn't get to go back a lot because I was here.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I feel like Houston just became so much like my home.
Oh my God, yeah.
And my parents are divorced, and my dad is in Florida now. And so my mom actually moved to Houston for 2 years too, because long story, but a job opportunity brought her here. So we rented out our apartment for 2 years.
Sure.
And so like anytime I went home, it was like I would stay with my friends or stay with family. And so New York kind of doesn't feel as much like home now.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
In some ways it does, but in other ways, like I just love Houston so much. I feel like it's just a wonderful city in a lot of ways. So I think if New York was cheaper, I'd feel a little differently, but because I like barely can afford anything when I go there.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Have you been?
Yeah. Okay. So like several times. My partner lives in upstate.
Okay, cool.
And so she's, she loves New York.
She lives in upstate New York?
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet?
So we were in Sarasota actually.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So yeah, we did a show we did Sarasota Opera, and then we did Glimmer Glass together.
Is she a singer?
She is. Yes, she is. Okay. She does musical theater.
Okay.
But she was like an intern when we first met, and so I think she was the assistant company manager.
I've seen your photos together, and it's so cute.
Oh my God, thank you. Oh my, she's gonna listen to this. She's be like, oh my God, you guys are talking about it. Yeah.
Shout out. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, Kayla. And so, but she was the assistant company manager at Glimmer Glass. That was like a 6-month contract, and so that was really long.
Oh,
and then,
okay.
But then I think we just finished our 4th contract together, which is I think really fortunate to like be with somebody and be able to do gigs with them throughout the country. And so, when I think the first time I ever was in New York, I was 16, and we took a choir trip there. Or I think I was 17 actually. We took a choir trip there, and I was like, "This is really big, and it's really nice and everything." And then I took another trip a few years ago, because I think I was just kind of like driving through the country and stuff, and I stayed with some friends. And from what I recalled from that, I was just like, oh my God, it smells. It's very,
It's so smelly.
yeah, it is. And it's like very, like the buildings are so close together, and like, it's just like no sense of like personal space a lot of times. And it's so busy and loud, but it wasn't so different from how my recollections of the Philippines are. And like, nothing against the Philippines whatsoever. I think but I will say it's very much a very dense city. Like what's nice about here in Houston is like, we have the open space and everything is just built so far out. The continuous joke is like, Houston is 1 hour away from Houston.
Yes.
But there, I didn't feel so out of place. I think not more than I thought I was going to be. It was nice because I was just like, okay, like kind of like walking around. Okay, like I'm just minding my own business and doing my own thing, like everybody else is. And so I didn't feel so much like a fish out of water, if that makes sense.
100%. I also feel like every time I'm in New York, I maybe have like a moment where I'm like, oh, this feels different. But then after like not even a day, I want to say like 30 minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a New Yorker again, where you just kind of,
oh, that's cool.
Like get in the zone. Like you don't smile at strangers like you do here, but you like focus on yourself. And like, there's a beauty in just being like a person there, like with every other person, and everyone's like crammed together in the subway, so you have people of all different backgrounds, and I think there's like such a beauty in that too. I used to rock going to high school. I lived a 12-minute walk from my high school, which is amazing. Yeah. Except I would always run late, so I'd be like, it'd be like an 8-minute run. So I'd be like in these
walking
with my
time.
Breakfast in my hand, like running and eating like to school, and like no one ever gave me a second look because
absolutely.
you just versus like if I did that in Houston, everyone would be like, who is this crazy lady on the street? Like,
right.
But yeah, that was definitely a beauty in that in New York.
I think that's funny that you say that because I'm very bad about doing the whole, not bad, but I'm very much like, oh, I grew up in the South, and you say hi to your neighbor kind of thing, and like you smile at everybody. And that's the thing is like, I do that all the time anywhere we go. And so like whenever we'd be in Sarasota, it's in Florida, again, like very much slower paced, it's not very out of place. But then whenever we're visiting upstate or even, or especially in the city, she'd be like, nobody does that. And it's not even just like her trying to be rude. It's just like people think I'm weird whenever I do that. But I'm just kind of like, okay, like, I mean, I'm not like dilly-dallying about, but that's a very Texan thing to say. But it's certainly like, okay, like nobody says hi to each other. You just don't even smile. You just keep going, which I totally get and I totally respect. But I'm just kind of like,
in some ways it'd be like ruder too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know, I love it. I love a Southern hospitality moment. Like I love going into a store and being greeted very like with so much friendliness by the people. Something about what you were saying reminds me of like something that I experienced the other day, where I feel like being in a city like Houston where there is so much food, it means that like even people who maybe are within like one culture, I feel like still have like tried different cuisines, I was just thinking, my boss, King of Ferguson, who she's an amazing boss.
She's wonderful.
She was saying that one of her favorite snacks is eating kimchi and avocado.
Really?
And I was like, what? Like she's a Polish woman, like I mean, very educated, very wonderful, like into diversity too. But I was just like, that's like so crazy that is one of your favorite snacks, because that's like what I grew up eating.
Sure,
like eating kimbap with like kimchi and avocado and rice and egg. But I was like, the fact that you're eating as a snack. But growing up, I was so mindful of like whether the kimchi like smelled, if I brought it to school.
Can we talk about that?
I know. But then I was like, she brought it as a snack one day to the office, and I was like, I don't have to worry about this. I was like, I wouldn't have to worry about it with her anyway. But just the idea that there's like diversity that allows me to be like comfortable enough to eat whatever I want to eat here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like 100%.
Yeah, just feeling comfortable. It makes a difference in all these like small moments.
Yeah.
But yes, we can talk about
I think
like
food. I hate that. I very much hate that. My mom works at St. Luke's, and so it's very much. She's never had stories or anything, but I definitely think about it as there's a lot of nurses, and like a lot of nurses' aides are very much not. Are very much immigrants. Yeah. And so I always think about, like break rooms and whatever else, and like the nature of that, of just having foods from your own culture that you're not necessarily embarrassed of, but definitely, can certainly be pungent, or something that is, that can be, I guess, in some ways offensive. I've always been like very cognizant of that. I feel like a lot of other people are too, especially when they immigrated, or just like come from parents that have immigrated.
Right.
It's
and it's interesting. I mean, I can only speak to my personal experience, but I actually feel like the person that was the most mindful of it was my mom and like my family. I don't know if you relate to, but it's like my mom was the one that was like, oh, don't open the fridge for too long because the kimchi will smell, or like if we had fish in the freezer, it was like like the fish is going to be really stinky, and I feel like
vinegar and
and I was like, I feel like I don't really care, but I guess maybe it's like in the older generations like experience with it, obviously, or but yeah, I feel very fortunate that like I went to very predominantly like Asian elementary school too, so I never had to deal with that. I did like exchanges. Like I would bring seaweed rice and like anchovies, like this Korean like, you know, pantan, and I would make these little wraps. And like I had a Chinese friend who like loved these little wraps, and so she would bring to school these, you know, the seaweed like they're kind of sweet, they like are very thin, like is it like a snack? I don't know if you've ever had it.
No.
Okay, but she would bring those to school, and my sister loved those, so I would literally exchange my food for those seaweeds.
That's cool.
So I could bring them back to my sister. So I was trading my lunch for my sister. We had a whole like barter system going on with like
my god,
the Asian
that's
food
so cool.
at school. So I was lucky in that regard, but
I personally, I don't think I've ever had a direct confrontation of, oh, like this food smells, or this is really sucky, or whatever.
But I definitely know, like some of my close friends, like one of my friends who grew up in Georgia, like she was bullied so hard for like the food. Oh my god. She like, her parents don't speak English that well, but she doesn't speak Korean that well anymore, even though because like she was always so afraid to speak it at home or like with her parents. And yeah, it's just sad because it made her like further distance from her culture. Yeah, I think, you know, even growing up in New York City where it's very diverse, and I feel like I had friends of different backgrounds too, like even just thinking how much I've learned in the past like 4 years in college, and then you're out of college, like there's so much we can always be learning about different cultures and like constantly like expanding our mind and being open. That I don't know, it's definitely throughout like life, like having kids be exposed to that early on is like so important.
There was this recital that some friends put up, and I think it's so very true, and I think everybody can relate to it. No matter where you are in the spectrum of, you know, identifying with a different race in general, but the name of it was neither here or there, and I think it's very much, you know, I think there's like a lot of truth in that. It's very much okay. Like sometimes I may not feel or like look like I necessarily like fit in totally in certain situations, but I don't necessarily like fit into like where I like some of my roots maybe at times. But I think this is a very cliche thing to say, but I think it's like what is so unique, you know, about like the diaspora in general, and just you know, how we're all like. But yeah, I always remember. I think that's always stuck with me. Is I'm just like, okay, like, but we're here now in our own way. I think and I think that's so important.
You know, and a cliche is a cliche for a reason, you know, like it's such a beautiful thing to be like reflecting on and thinking about. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing. I love the idea of that recital that your friend had.
Yeah, I think it's super duper special because I think it's, you know, again, like growing up here and then like having, you know, like just looking the way that they are and just, you know, just like being very Asian. I think it's so special. I think I definitely don't fit in with my cousins at all. I love them to death. I mean, first of all, like my cousins are bodybuilders too in the Philippines.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so you know, at times whenever we have gone and visited, I struggle a lot with my Tagalog, and so like I can still speak it fluently, but it's certainly like, oh, I do have to think about like what the translation is.
Right.
And they just look at me and they're just like, you can say it in English. We can understand you perfectly fine. You know, because like they grew up more so with Western culture more so than I did. I personally would say like they grew up like watching ESPN and sports, and you know like they're, you know, like they were huge like Justin Bieber fans when he was like a huge thing and stuff. And so, but yeah, I always remember that. But at times, like, you know, especially in what we do, I don't know how much you experience this too, but like, you know, like you look around the room in like a rehearsal room, and I'm just like, okay, like I'm definitely the only one waving the flag, you know, from where I'm from. And it's not like exactly a bad thing or anything, but it's definitely like, you know, I do understand that privilege in that own way, in my own way. And yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thing. I think we're both, I would say, I guess I can't speak for you exactly, but I feel so lucky that I love my company. I think everyone we work with, especially just like specifically Ars Lyrica, is really wonderful. Like, you've known my team, and like everyone's white, or like at least the people I work with directly,
or at the very least.
Yeah, but everyone is like super wonderful, and I think we do a really good job of bringing in like diverse artists.
Yeah,
or we, like, that's
100%.
Yeah, very important
Absolutely.
to us, and like not in a way where we're ever like, oh, that's the reason we're hiring someone, but that just is something extremely important to like what we do.
But you can feel it. There's like a sense of welcoming atmosphere about it, where it's, you know, like the diversity is there. And I love that.
And it's great, and it's like it's really cool to be an organization that does that, but I'm also aware that that's not really the case of a lot of my friends who work at other companies where even if they say they have diversity efforts, it's not like truly genuine.
Right.
And so I don't know, it's just always like important to be thinking about, and like always, and again, even if we're doing a good job, quote unquote, whatever that means, like there's always more that we can be doing, always more that we can be like educating ourselves on. But I think it is really cool to work in the nonprofit space for that reason, because I feel like a lot of people do genuinely have good intentions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, good. Well, maybe not everyone has good execution, but again,
sure.
Speaking at my company, I feel very like fortunate where that is something we care about and like do. But always more representation like is better.
To that effect, I remembered when Hamilton first came out.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, like, yes, of course, like all these figures were white, like historically, but I think a lot of times people miss the point of, yes, they were white, but I think like the cast reflects now what America looks like. And it's not just white. And I think that's so important because, like, you know, you do see people that look like us more so.
Yeah, and you're not going to forget the fact that like everyone back in the day was white, you know? Like,
right. Oh my God.
Like anything. Right. It's like people are like a lot more educated after Hamilton than they were beforehand, you know?
Right. No, for sure. I remember seeing that and I was like, this is really right. I love the concept of it. It's like, cool. Like, let's break down the barrier. Okay. Like, it's not just white people that can play this.
And I also loved like actually talking to my like sometimes not feeling like Asian enough, like one of the main lead actors, it was like half, I think, is Philippa Sue, like she's half Chinese, half white. And I remember just being like, okay, like if she counts, like I count too. Like, and it was fun. They really had representation from like all types of people, like which I super appreciated.
No, 100%. It was really cool seeing the Hamilton tour when they went to Australia.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was very much
did you see them in Australia?
I didn't see them in Australia. Okay. I wish I did. I've actually never seen Hamilton.
Okay.
I wish I did. But
me neither. We gotta do that at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever they tour, let's do it. But I remember, like, I think just like they just posted like a reel or something on Instagram. This was like, I think even like right before the pandemic. But it was just like, so like the Pacific Islander representation was just like huge. And the Asian representation was like also huge as well. And so, you know, it's just, I thought it was really rad because like I think it was very unique to that area, or I think just like that part of the world where, you know, again, like you don't really see people that look like that often, or like, you know, but they're still there. They're the ones that are going to be representing the most, I think. And so I think that was really wonderful that they featured a lot of those people there. I like, for me, I was just like tearing up a little bit of just like seeing that. I'm just like, this is really rad. Like people that are playing this, not specifically reflects people that how the United States looks like, but you know, like how Australia looks like. I thought it was really rad.
Yeah, and I think it's great that like as people who like care about diversity and stuff, like that type of representation is good for people of all generations, like always, you know, whether you see like, I don't know if you saw those adorable videos of the kids looking like, the Little Mermaid. Yes, like that is so sweet. But also like there's also like older grandmas who like when they saw that the Little Mermaid was black, they were also like just like teared up from that too. And like for me still, like seeing people who represent me, like it means so much. Did you
ever watch the Oscars this year at all? I don't ever watch
are you gonna talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once? Let's do it.
No,
is that what you were gonna talk about?
Oh well, like we definitely, like, so it's like definitely gonna segue into it, but like I never do. And like and Kayla, my partner, loves watching them, and it was really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it, embarrassingly enough, I didn't watch Everything Everywhere All at Once until after.
Okay.
And so, but it was really cool. It was, I think it was like such a salute to, again, people that look like us, which they didn't have to, like at all, but I thought it was like a really big deal that, like, you know, just like, this is to all the little boys and little girls that look like me. I was like,
I know.
I was crying.
Are you getting emotional?
I'm about to right now. Yeah.
No, it is so sweet. Like, and I feel, it just is. And that movie also, like, I think it's so fun to be at the point now where we start to see like film and culture, film and art that's not just about like, oh, this is being Asian. It's like, here's this story and the characters happen to be Asian as well, you know, and that's like such a huge difference too. And maybe that's like with Hamilton, that was like so great to see too, because it wasn't about the fact that they were like POC actors or anything. It was like because they were just performing and it was incredible, and they also happened to be like of different backgrounds.
You guys have been promoting this book a lot, and I have honestly no idea what it's about, but it seems really cool, and like both of you have done so much work on it. And Emma Wine, who is your coworker at Ars Lyrica Houston, authored this book, Maria's Magical Music Adventure. Can you talk about it? This is so rad.
I totally can. So I mentioned to Julius, I was like, I want to talk to you about this book because I feel like it's relevant to a lot of the stuff we've been having a conversation about. So Maria's Magical Music Adventure is a children's book that was written by my coworker, Emma Wine, who is also a composer. She's brilliant. And it's a story about this girl named Maria who goes back in time and meets Antonio Vivaldi. For those of you who don't know, it's a famous Baroque composer from the 17th century. And she goes on this magical music adventure where she meets him and shares like a love of music and is like walks away inspired. But the reason I love this book is I feel like it connects us to like present day. It was really important for us to have representation. So Maria is like, you know, someone who grows up in Houston would look like. Yeah. If you flip through the book, you'll see there's like blue bonnets because it kind of and there's like and then there's also the Houston skyline. Yeah.
Oh my God, look at this. Like,
you flipped right to the page. That's perfect.
Perfect. This is like the colors on this is stunning.
Yeah. So I just love it because it's kind of, you know, it's exactly. Thank you.
Showing that.
Rooted in a little bit of what we do. If you flip actually, and then a little bit more, this guy Matthew the Magical Musician, our founder Matthew Durst,
is that what it's based off
vaguely
of?
Inspired by him.
Oh my goodness.
And then if you scroll who am I, I'm just gonna flip through till Matthew invites Maria to a concert, and you can see this concert hall is similar to what we do with Ars Lyrica Houston. So it's kind of like rooted in a little bit of what we do, but it's also just like in a really adorable story about like a girl finding herself through her love of music. And it's such a cute premise that we've brought the book to life now in a play form, which we're doing with this Express Children's Theater. So bringing it into like this really fun, engaging play that we're touring through like 20 Houston elementary schools and everything.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just been super fun. And what we're talking about with representation, I mean, it's not Asian representation in this case, but
still I think
just
it
like very important.
Houston
yeah, exactly.
Well. Wow.
Yeah, it's super cute. You should take a copy of the book home.
Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That is so cool.
No, it's fun, and I feel like this is just the type of thing that we can constantly like need more of, you know, in our arts world. And is it realistic that a girl goes back in time to meet Vivaldi? Like, absolutely not. But does it still connect like Vivaldi, this like really important Baroque composer, into something that's familiar with us in the present? Like, yes, too, you know.
It's crazy. I grew up with the Magic Tree House like series, and so that just like reminds me very much of like that, and like Dragon Tales too. And so I'm just like, this is so cool.
And I know that I'm like, I work in marketing for Ars Lyrica, and I know I'm like promoting this book, but I genuinely like it comes from such a genuine place because I believe in it so strongly, and I just think it's just so fun, and hopefully we'll have like even more stuff like this. And well, I think in general children's books have been so good about like representation. And
actually, I'm gonna show this to my sister because she teaches pre-K, and like she teaches at a charter school, which is really great. And so like a lot of her kids are refugees, or just none of them are white. They're like it's very much either Hispanic or very much like Afghani refugees. And so this is so cool.
Yeah,
like I feel like she would really appreciate this, because there have been kids where it's just like, oh my God, she looks like me, like from the books, and like she's like been reading them, which is really cool. Oh my God.
And we have a Spanish version as well, because this was important to us to be able to reach people of different backgrounds. Obviously it'd be great if we had one in like every language, but oh
my God, wow. Thank you for like telling me all about this. Are you sure I can keep this? Oh my God,
it's your copy.
Thank you. This is so rad. I'm definitely gonna share this with my sister. Be like, hey, you should read this to your kids.
But it's wholesome. And I think maybe it feels special to me because like as a musician, like I think there's like violin in the book, or in the play version we have violinists like performing alongside the actors. Cool. And so, you know, as a musician, as a violist and a performer and someone who cares about all this stuff, it just feels like it's bringing together all these like things that are really important to me, and also in general. I was talking to my sister about this. Is like, where were these books when we were growing up? You know, because like she would read a lot of books primarily that are people of color, because those are what her kids are. And it's so rad because they're just like, that looks like me. And so I love that, because it's like stuff that you just like primarily would see on like Instagram or something. And like what a very heartfelt, very genuine thing. Thank you. Oh my God, this is so rad. And it's fun to like see it in flesh and just know that it's happening in future generations. I mean, in general, I feel like we're moving to a better future. where
Yeah.
there's representation, and I'm so
Yeah, it
excited
matters.
for my future kids to have children's books of all different types. And
Yeah.
especially, I love the videos also when people have dolls of like different races in them,
Yes.
and they love them so much. And yeah, it's just so sweet. You know, I think about this a lot because I feel like people kind of, maybe there's a bad rap also being like too PC, and like sometimes not actually, but like, you know, people complaining about that and them saying like, oh, it's not realistic, the things that we were talking about earlier. But it just makes a difference. It really does. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like every single piece of media that's like a little bit more representation, like
Yeah.
even if it's subconscious, like, you know, you feel more confident, like able to do things. Yeah.
No,
It's
100%. I think that I can't begin to describe how much it really does matter, because it's like cool. Like, again, like people that look like me or people that understand, or I don't have to explain why this thing is like this or how I feel like this.
Yeah.
I think that's so special. And I think, you know, just hands down, representation definitely does matter. That's so rad. Again, thank you so much for this. This is so cool.
Of
Thank you for
course.
sharing this. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Emma Wine. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emma Wine is amazing.
She's so wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having an interest in the book and letting me talk about all my interests like the past hour. It's
Yeah,
been
oh
so
my
fun
God.
chatting.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being a part of this. It really means a lot that that we have the time and space to be able to do this. Lauren Ross is so wonderful and brilliant, and honestly, it's kind of crazy.
Sanchez is wonderful and brilliant.
Thank you. It's crazy because like we actually have not worked together so much.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to be able to do so this following year. But it's so nice to get to know you a little bit and like exchange stories and be able to talk about our experiences. And
I think it's like speaks to everything before about the fact that we like we don't know each other that well, but we were able to relate on so many things because of our shared experiences, as you're talking about, like in the arts world and also being Asian.
yeah,
It's really fun, really cool to experience.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you so much. Again, this is Wear Yellow Proudly and Through Our Lens podcast. Thank you for joining us for this show, and yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Through Our Lens, brought to you by Wear Yellow Proudly. We release episodes every third and fifth Tuesday of every month. If you like this episode, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all of our social media platforms. See you on the next episode.